Welcome back to Our Stories Matter, We Will Dance Again. I'm Susie Hess.
And I'm Miri Bar-Halprin. As we approach the new year, it's time for reflection on the challenges and trauma of this past year. This period invites us to acknowledge the pain we've endured while also finding moments of healing and hope as we continue to dance.
Today, we're re-airing Dr. Illana Kwartin, COO of Healing Space Rishvan, an innovative initiative established in response to the profound mental and emotional trauma caused by the October 7th massacres and the ongoing war in Israel. Healing Space employs a holistic approach to restore the mind-body connection disrupted by trauma.
So before we dive into this episode, let's pause and share some personal steps to navigate this upcoming year of reflection and healing. As we know, getting through the holidays can be especially stressful, even though most people will say it's a happy time. Please don't forget to set aside time for yourself. For example, I've been focusing on self-compassion and gratitude. Simple practices like saying what I'm grateful for at the end of the day, taking a moment for myself or self-care without feeling guilty, like a long bath, enjoying a cup of coffee, or my favorite, having a dance party in the living room with my kids.
I really like the coffee part, which I do every single morning. And for me, it's probably more about connection because trauma can feel so isolating, especially during the holidays. So I have found that reaching out to friends who are like family, whether through a call, like meeting them for lunch or dinner or coffee, hiking with a friend, has been super healing. And it reminds me I'm not alone on this journey. So as we listen to Dr. Illana Kwartin's insights, let's remember that healing is a journey and it's part of life.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to introduce Dr. Illana Kwartin, who is the Executive Director of Healing Space Rishvan. Healing Space was founded in the immediate aftermath of October 7 massacre and has been using holistic approaches to provide a pioneering response to the mental and emotional trauma following the October 7th tragedy and the war in Israel. Healing Space works to repair the mind-body connection broken by trauma and build multiple modalities of resilience to ensure the future. Dr. Kwartin is also an inspirational speaker, a feminist, activist, legislative advisor, author, and entrepreneur. She lives in Eilat in Israel, and she's a mother of 4. Welcome, Illana.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's really exciting.
I'm so excited you're here. And Miri, you have to tell the story of like how we even connected with Illana.
So when Susie and I were in Israel, we had a mental health panel. And we brought experts from all over Israel, and Illana was just amazing in the panel. We spoke before and trying to figure out ways to collaborate. And then after the panel, I was all over the place talking with different people. And I was like, Susie, go get her. This person, this beautiful person over there with the curly blonde hair, go. And she just ran over.
I just ran, like just randomly. We had like 30 seconds. And I was like, Mira told me to come over. We're doing a podcast. We would love to have you on. That was it. And then you're like, okay, put my information in your phone. And then that was it. We said goodbye. And it was like 30 seconds. And then Illana was just in LA for a fundraiser. So it was really cool to see you in person also again.
Definitely. And coming back in September as well.
Yay. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited.
Are you coming for another fundraising?
Yeah, basically same places, same locations, same people that we met in June. We want to meet again in September. These are relationships that we want to keep. And it was amazing in June and it's going to be amazing in September. A lot of supporters, a lot of great people who want to hear about Healing Space. And it was amazing.
I'm so excited. When you get the flyer and everything, send it to me so I could send it to all my peeps.
No problem.
Oh, and Trauma Informed LA will share it as well. So, yeah, that was amazing, amazing, amazing. And I'm excited to sort of like get into it today so that more people can hear all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you for that.
Can you talk about where you were on October 7th?
Yeah, sure. I do want to insert something important. Miri has been helping out Sky, the head of therapy at Healing Space. And he mentions a lot how this mentorship is important to him. So thank you for that very, very much. That you're along with us every day, in a sense, in Healing Space.
Oh, I love the opportunity to just be part of it. I think, we talk in this podcast a lot about healing and giving meaning, and the work with Sky and just listening to all the amazing things that you guys are doing is just helpful for me as well. So thank you both ways.
So October 7th, 6:29, when this whole thing started, we had like a Shabbat plan, a Saturday plan with friends celebrating my son's birthday, which is October 8th. And as, kind of like the things are coming in, the information phone calls, videos. People are calling from the States. No one is understanding what's happening. It was clear that something is happening. And we are living on the border, like on the wall. And our community, in just like routine time, we have guarding duties that we do day and night, all of us residents. And so we kind of went into this army mode, I guess, when we started hearing all of this. So we sealed the community. Everyone stayed put at home and, listen for orders. And that's how we kind of like reacted to the situation as we're hearing everything and trying to understand what's happening. And everybody calling us also asking what's happening. So that's like the first thing we did. Started thinking how to keep ourselves safe, how to keep the kids safe. And then after a few hours, a lot of the grown-ups have started receiving notices of, you have to come to reserve duty now. You have to come to post within a half an hour. You have to come. And then within hours, we had maybe a quarter of the grown-ups in the community present and all the children. So that demographically, like kind of who stayed. And then so we guard for ourselves without the entire population. And it continued for weeks. I mean, it wasn't just the one day, but the one day was huge. And then continued for a few weeks without knowing when it's good. But that's kind of where it caught me in Eliav, in my community, in my home.
Illana, so where exactly is Eliav?
So Eliav is in the southern periphery. And we always say that after the Gaza envelope, we're the second line of infiltration. So in a sense, if you look at the map that day and the day after, everything becomes red. War zone, army zone. This is what we're looking at the map, and we're kind of like next up. Luckily, on that day, there was no infiltration to Eliav, but the way we sealed ourselves was as if we're next. We also took other measures, like we went into the gun room. We took all of the weapons back into our homes because we were hearing the stories coming out of the Gaza envelope kibbutzim that people didn't have their guns at home, so they couldn't react. They had to go to the war room to bring the guns, and they were shot and killed on the way. So we're taking all these measures. And again, not just us. There's a lot of communities that are living on the border that are the second line of infiltration after the Gaza envelope. I don't know if people hear about it so much, but, Israel is small. It's narrow. So in terms of proximity to where it's dangerous, it's very quick. So we went into that mode.
I'm thinking, I didn't think about that area as well, but, you're a mother of 4 and you're also a professional in mental health field. How do you function?
So I'll say even before I'm a mother of 4, in the army service, I served in the Gaza Strip and I was at Tatzpitanit in an observation post in Nahal Oz and in Netzarim, which is in the Gaza City. And so this was my army service. Later on, I was an officer, I was a commander in the observation post course. I know the area, I know the field, I know the profession. And again, I don't know if you heard, but the war started with warnings of the observation post personnel, soldiers, that were not listened to. And so in my head, it was like, you see it with your own eyes. You look at the borders, they're crossing the border from Gaza. You're notifying the troops and no one is listening to you. And so I connected on the deepest level because that was the job that I was performing for 3 years right there in Gaza. And so even before I'm a mother, I'm this. And so I went into soldier mode, right? And protecting my children, protecting all of the kids in our community and thinking security-wise, what is the scenario that makes sense? But again, something broke that day. The scenario that we had until now, that someone will cross the border and come into Eliav and something bad would happen, that someone was a person and a half. And then you see that actually it was thousands. The scenario of 1,000 never crossed our minds in Eliav, let alone, in other places. So everything changed. And I'll add, I guess, another layer on that day. You'll ask any Israeli, and I think I say it a lot when missions come to Healing Space, and I have to explain to them kind of like how it felt. But for 17 hours, there was no state of Israel. There was just nothing, vacuum. You didn't know what was happening. You didn't know when it's going to end. The disbelief, the distrust, they are part of us until this day. We're now in July. We're still carrying this. I don't know if we can ever uncarry this scar of not trusting, not believing, not having a state, not having a country. And it's really scary because, again, thinking about us as representing, Jewry, world Jewry, but living in Israel, talking to our brothers and sisters in other countries, we understood that if there's no Israel, there's no Jews. And so that's how, thousands of people that we were talking to are feeling. And so those hours of nothing were so scary. And so I think kind of like the combination of being in the Gaza Strip, being in the profession of Tatzpitanit on an observation post, knowing this, having my children, looking at my community, looking at my country, at the future, it was really the feeling that everything we've built is going to collapse in one instant. So the fear, actually, Israelis, the fear motivates to action. What can I do? What can I, the individual person, do? What can we as a country? What can we as civil society? What can anyone do? Right? So that was kind of like the feeling of doubt, but also the question.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that is what I saw when I was in Israel in March. I mean, I was there in 1992, which was a whole other ballgame. But seeing like not giving up and rising up, I mean, everyone having like a purpose or finding a purpose. I'm wondering a couple of things. One, how have you been since October 7th in terms of your healing journey? And then if you can talk about what you did of your own, like, I'm going to find purpose in all of this.
Yeah. So the question of my own healing doesn't really come to mind. I'm very much in the doing, less in the being. I've always been like this, all the time in movement. And I think it's part of what helps a lot of Israelis and helps me. And so I can't tell you that. Maybe next year, maybe in a couple of years when I'll sit down and be like, okay, what just happened? And ask those questions, maybe then. We're not digesting yet. But I think what helped, it was clear to me, I think really on October 7th, but later on also, as I was establishing the war room in Aliyah, fundraising to bring cameras that will see the infiltration, doing all these things, because we're in doing mode, I was thinking everything I did before is irrelevant, right? I specialize in women's rights. I represented a lot of women in very difficult relationships, legislation. I ran nonprofits. I'm an activist. I'm a writer. I did a lot of things, but all of this kind of vanished and everything I did was irrelevant. And it was clear to me that I am going to take part in the rehabilitation of my country. What does it mean? I didn't really know. And it's not until I heard about Healing Space and saw that they were looking for an executive director that I was even taking myself. This was the first time that I left home. Like I was guarding at the gate up until that very second. I saw it and I decided to drive up there and and go to an interview. And in a sense, the rest is history because I got there. I found the answer to my personal question of how am I going to be part of my country's rehabilitation from this point on, and how everything I did up until this point is in the profession that I'm going to continue with. And this is where I want to do this. And that's where I've been since.
I'm thinking about that sense of doing that we constantly go back to, right? And what you described before, that core fear of survival. And I'm wondering, there is this, when we think about fight or flight, you're a fighter, as we can tell, right? And fighting all the way to creating something new. And I think there's so much power into that. And yet you're also saying, I'm from this community. Like how, working with all those people who are coming through the program, how is it not, or maybe it is, if it's triggering, and if it is, what are you doing with that?
So I'll just say that I have a huge team of people, from logistics and operations through, marketing and fundraising and just like managing the people. And then there's this huge body of therapists. We have 140 therapists. They are the ones, yeah. So I always say that they're the ones who touch trauma with their own hands, right? So the body keeps the score and the trauma is registered in the body, even if the mind of the people who are coming to Healing Space says to them, I'm okay, everything is fine with me, I'm fine. Their body doesn't lie. And so the therapists who touch the body or who teach the yoga or teach the art therapy or whatever, they let the trauma out of the body with their own hands, with their touch, with their words. And so I always ask the therapists because they're the ones who kind of like bump heads with trauma every day, more so than I do, right? Because I'm just a director of all of this thing. I'm orchestrating this whole thing and making this possible. But I'm not the one touching the people's trauma every day, from morning to evening. And we always ask them, and they also talk about this sense of purpose. A lot of them say that the people who come heal them back, right? It's not that they're there to heal them, but they get healed from this. And it's so meaningful to them. And a lot of them, they have clinics at home and they had, their own jobs, and they can do work seven days a week if they want to, but they choose to come and work at Healing Space and to see tens and thousands of people. And I think it's I don't know if it's hard for me to even grasp that we've seen 10,000 people up to date, 10,000 people that 140 therapists have treated and have accumulated 30,000 hours of experience in trauma healing in the middle of the war, in a natural area in nature, using kind of like all of these different modalities to create the healing process. So just to understand this huge concept, I mean, this is not, your small initiative or project that you do kind of like at the back of this is a new discourse about trauma. This is a new reality. This is a new Israel, if you will. And I always think to myself, what kind of Israel do I want to see for my children, for my grandchildren? Like, what kind of paths in Israel do they want to walk through? What kind of journey? And that's the kind of Israel I want to see. The one that talks about trauma, the one that heals it, the one that allows it to even happen. And a lot of the people who walk through Healing Space, they have this armor, right? Not only are they fighters or therapists or medical personnel or survivors of this war, they're also coming in and they're Israeli and they have their armor and they're like, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm strong, I'm here for other people, I'm here so that you could keep on living, I'm here for you. And then this place kind of lets them open up, let go, and submit themselves to what's happening at Healing Space and what's happening to them. Even without a diagnosis, even without realizing, even without calling it a name. It's not even important to say, I'm experiencing something, I have trauma. You don't have to say it. There are no walls, there's no cement, there are no buildings. It's just kind of like walk in there. It's not threatening. You're not going to a hospital. So the combination of all of these things is what makes this place meaningful to the people who work there and heals them in their traumatic response all these months.
Oh my gosh. I love everything you have said on so many levels. And you and I, we talked about when you were in LA, we have so much in common, obviously, before all of this, is that we both were activists with gender-based violence and, domestic violence. And that was my experience, is that, I felt as the healer, I was being healed through the stories, which makes sense in terms of what you're talking about with Healing Space. And the one part that I actually don't know was Healing Space, did it start from October 7th or did it exist before October 7th?
It did start on October 7th, I think at night or the next morning, when a group of people coming from therapy and entrepreneurship and just, they said, we need to do something. No one is looking at the festival survivors. No one is helping them. They all went back home after this event. And so this place was like, it started with looking like a festival, like yurts and tents and beds and just people helping people with, massage and shiatsu and acupuncture and yoga and food and being there. That's how it all started. And it did not exist before. And for someone who visits Healing Space today, looking around, seeing this amazing campus, it's hard to believe that it didn't exist. But once it exists, it's like, how did we have Israel and wars and terror attacks and just the kind of the normal day in Israel without having a place like this?
So can you tell us about the journey, right? The healing journey. So, it started with the Survivor of the Nova Festival. So other than the shiatsu and really the body part, what is the whole journey?
So I'll say that it started with the Nova survivors, but we quickly understood that the trauma response is more than 500,000 people that are experiencing this. And the police forces started coming to us. And then the reserve soldiers started coming to us. And then medical personnel from hospitals. And then therapists and more and more and more. Even now, the families of the hostages and just more and more populations that are starting to come to us that are experiencing vicarious trauma. Maybe not as survivors, but as something that kind of hits them. And I think the what we saw in the first months is that people didn't have words to describe what they've been through. People didn't want to talk. The last thing they wanted to do is talk. They wouldn't even go through an intake process. Miri, I remember that we talked about it in the Weizmann Institute, that the intake process, like, what do you ask and how do you ask? That was so difficult. And so the whole talking, the whole words, the whole verbal aspect, we had to bypass it. And so how do you bypass it? You go straight into where it's stored in the body. And so that's why all of these modalities were created. Healing, sound healing, yoga therapy, art therapy, working with your hands, working with your sentence, less talking, more doing, more being, kind of like with the group around you. And today we are adding words, if you will, also because we are further away from the trauma, but also because the populations that are coming to us are ready to talk a little bit. We don't always talk about the traumatic event. We do talk about the present and how do I deal with the now. And so we always say that we want to interfere, but in a way that we can close it. Like, we'll open something that we're able to close. So if it's something that you can open and close within 45 minutes, then we'll do it. So that's kind of like the limit. We're not going into processing of 3 or 4 or 5 hours right now. But the reason I went to LA and coming back in September was actually because we're building a second campus, because the campus we're in is not enough in terms of how many people we can see. We can only see 100 people a day. So we're opening another campus to see another 100 people. And also, the yurts that we're putting there are ones where you can stay overnight. So the overnight experience is going to allow us to do a 48 or a 72 hours process where you can process with verbal means for 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And that's going to be a different story. So that's starting hopefully September, October. This is just to explain kind of.
Incredible modalities. And obviously the world will be learning from you all, because obviously there's no research of what to do, what not to do. And it's interesting when you talk about the silence, because Mary and I have talked about, well, we were on the trip together and we both are very chatty in general. But during the trip, I was pretty silent because I was so shocked. We were hearing, testimonies like 12 hours a day for 4 days. And then I came back and people were asking me, like, what was your experience? And I couldn't talk about it. And it was, to this day, I still haven't really talked about it except for bits and pieces with Miri. And so it makes sense. And my therapist, by the way, is all body focused. And so she does all the body work with me, trauma focused yoga, EMDR. And she doesn't let me go down all of the dark thoughts that I was having at that time. It's like increments, and then we're breathing and we're doing body work because the body keeps the score. Hearing this from you actually makes me feel normal, of like that I am still super quiet about the experience and sort of like within. And I love that you're just focused on the mind body. And I love that you're going to have a place for the overnight so you can do work that just continues on. I mean, globally, we will be learning from you.
Yeah. So the overnight capacity that we're building right now, it's very crucial because, you don't want to, I see people, it's like 5 p.m. and they're like rushing to their cars from Healing Space home, going into traffic for 3 hours, right? Because they live in the south. Rishpon is, by the way, in the center of Israel. It's meaningful to say that because it's far away from bombing in the south and far away from bombing in the north. So it is a haven in the middle. But still, people need to drive home. And so they kind of like wrap up their day, wrap up their experience, rush into their car and go. But if you were able to stay for 2 or 3 days, then you can actually relax and you can open up with words, right, for the first time. And I just want to say that I relate. I don't think I've talked about October 7th, and I talk a lot, and I pitch about Healing Space and I pitch about Israel and things like that. But it's hard to say, how scared I was for my children and how scared I still am. Like, my big one is going to the army soon, and all of our neighbors did. I mean, how do you live in Israel? How do you send kids to the army when the war is ongoing? How do you keep living on the border when you don't trust someone to save you and you have to save yourself? I have a gun license and I have one, right? And this is the reality of people. This is the new reality. It hasn't been like this before. And we don't really talk about it. We kind of live it. We don't talk about it with our friends, with our families. It's too hard.
You know what's interesting about what you're saying is that, you are in Israel experiencing the war and still having a hard time talking about it because the war is still going on as well, which makes total sense. I'm here in the US and I'm still experiencing it as well. Kind of like what Susie mentioned. It feels like it's global. It's everywhere, right? Like that sense of safety. I remember that after the 7th, for the first several months, every time I was looking at my kids going to bed, like I was like, go to see them before when they're sleeping and move between the rooms. I saw them covered with blood. Like I had that instant of image of them covered with blood. And I'm not in Israel right now, but that idea of what could happen if is just debilitating, in my opinion. So I can only imagine, if I have this secondary trauma from that, you were there. You were literally protecting them. And then being able to move forward in a way that they're doing and building in almost like a new community in a way with a healing center. I mean, when you talk about like the overnight, the first thing that came to my mind, you're giving them a new community of healing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think the community piece is super important. Everything that we do in Healing Space, by the way, I want to emphasize the fact that it's group therapy. You're always in a group of 10, up to 10. The one-on-one sessions are just the body work. Like if you're getting a massage, obviously you're getting by yourself, but you're in the yurt along with the group of 10 that you've started the journey with. And so the group aspect, the community aspect, there's other people who have experienced the same thing with me. I'm not alone. This is normal feeling is huge. And in general, Israel is such a, community-filled country. And that's something interesting, Mira, that I feel, I guess, the difference. And again, coming to LA just for a couple of weeks and feeling it. And so, yes, everyone, if you're Jewish, you're traumatized. Yeah, the anti-Semitism have rised, and you're thinking about your kids, high school, college, afterwards. People are sending some of their kids to Israel to go to the army on Sabah or other programs. You're all the time in fear. But I think the difference is that in Israel, you have your community. And I was always saying this, that we're going through this war together. I mean, I'm not going through this alone. I'm going through this with my family, with my Eliyav community, with my community at Healing Space, with the other people who come, with the rest of Israel. You always feel that together. Even if you don't feel leadership or the support of your government or whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but you feel that together, which you don't feel. And I remember from living in LA, you don't feel it in America. You don't feel that together. And because you're going through this alone, maybe the vicarious trauma is actually stronger there.
Yeah, I don't know if you can relate to that. Like I know when I'm meeting new people and they ask me where I'm from, I'm like, am I saying that or am I not saying it? Like I literally went to see a new doctor last week and I had to fill in the form and yes, ethnicity and all of that. And like Middle Eastern, Israeli. And I go to the office and the first thing she asked me, are you Israeli? And my heart stopped for a second. And I'm like, yes. It's like, oh my God, is your family safe? That was like her second question. And my guard just like, okay, like I can breathe. I'm in the right space. But what you're describing, and Susan, I don't know if you feel it as well. Like it's that, who's my ally? Who's out to get me? Who can I trust?
Yes. So I never wore a Jewish star until October 7th. And so I was always in hiding. Like that was something that I was raised to do. So I have a Jewish star. So I wore it out to pick up my medications at Rite Aid. Okay. So I go to Rite Aid. I was picking up my medications and I saw the person who was helping me look at my star and my heart dropped and my heart started racing. And then I left and I left a message, a voice note for a friend of mine saying, I'm so curious, like what that look was. I went back the following month to get my medications and she was wearing one. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now I could breathe with the pharmacist. And so, just not knowing. And it's interesting because when you were talking about like the check boxes, so I have never identified as white, even though I have white skin. I've always said I'm Jewish with white skin. And I think one of the sort of confusions about Israel is that people think, obviously, that you're white, that you're a colonizer, all of that. And they don't really know that the majority of people are people of color in Israel. And I'm wondering, Illana, if you could talk about the diversity at Healing Space so that folks can just hear who you're serving and who exists in Israel.
Yeah, I think that also it came like a complete surprise. Again, you never know until you know. So healing space every day, there's kind of like a different population, right? So you'll start with Sunday with the medical personnel coming for a full day. You'll continue to Monday, and it will be a troop from battle in Gaza straight into healing space, and then back into battle in Gaza. And then on Tuesday, you'll have the police forces having a full day, at healing space. And then Wednesday, you'll have the Nova survivors coming for, a music class, and then art therapy, and then a writing, like bibliotherapy class. And then on Thursday, it will be like a community day, and it'll be more like kind of like around the fire and be some kind of a special event. And on Friday, it will be bereaved families that are coming for a session for the entire family. So it's parents, grandparents, children, aunts and uncles, siblings, and so on, of someone who died, who was murdered in one of the festivals. Okay. And then you look at it above, right? This was 600 people that I just described in 1 week. Some of them are reoccurring. Some of them are just one time, but you look at them and you're saying to yourself, so what connects them? And I think it's stronger when you sit with the bereaved families and parents are talking, right? These have a Haredi kid, right? Like a ultra-Orthodox child went to the party and was murdered. And these are a secular, your normal kind of like liberal, whatever family from the north who kids is whatever. This one from the south, this one from the north, this one from Jerusalem, this one a city, this one, they were in America. They came back because their kid was murdered in the party and so on. And so they're sitting together. They have opposing political views. They have different ideologies. They have different values. But they're meeting at healing space because the experience that brought them together is the fact that they've lost someone on that Black day. And they talk to each other and they're experiencing the same thing. And so even though there are differences and the backgrounds and the socioeconomical status, everything is different. Really, nothing would ever bring them together. They would never speak to each other. They would never be friends. And then suddenly they sit side by side through a ceremony of lighting the candles in the beginning of like Shabbat morning, which is how we start all those sessions. Or Thursday night around the fire, you'll see police forces with reserve duty soldiers, with Nova survivors, and with a second circle of someone who they lost sitting around the fire with someone having a guitar for a community evening, right? When did those people ever meet, ever sit together, ever be together? And talking about color, really any color, right? And it's important to say that to be Jewish is not just to be, white or mainstream or the majority or the colonizer, like you said. Being Jewish is so many different shades, and they all sit together at healing space, getting the same treatment for trauma, because trauma does not see color, and trauma does not see race or nationality. Doesn't care. It just happened in this one day. And I'm sure you heard on the news, and if you look at the hostages and you look at the people who were slaughtered, you hear about Bedouins and you hear about people of different nationalities in Israel. And I'm sure you know that Israel has reached out to other countries who have people with citizenship from these countries to help us get the hostages back. It just shows you what a microcosmos this country is and how many types of people and populations there are in this one little place.
So obviously, I knew that Israel is so diverse, but when you said that, what came to my mind is you were able to create a program that unites everyone, which is pretty amazing, right? Like when you think about evidence-based therapy and how like we're trying to capture that, but that sort of trauma doesn't differentiate, and being able to work bottom up, like from the body, to find that common mechanism, I think it's amazing, right? I mean, then you can figure out which language to use or whatever, but starting with the body. And, Susie, I don't think you know that about me, but so after the 7th, me being in my fight or flight zone, my husband actually was like, you need to do something for yourself. This cannot go on. And I felt my whole body aching, and I was not ready to see a therapist or talk about anything similar to the patient that you're seeing. And I was like, you know what? It's just my back. My back hurts. I'm going to go see a chiropractor. So for several weeks, I'm just going to go see a chiropractor. And then a chiropractor like, you should see a masseuse therapist. I have someone in my office. And I was like, okay, it's nothing about the trauma. I just like my body aches. I need to do that. And for about 2 to 3 months, every week, I went to get a massage. And it went from crying through a massage session week after week to me realizing, me, trauma expert, realizing, oh, okay, the body keeps the score. I got it now. I should also see a therapist. But it's that thought of like when you're in that field, I'll talk about myself. Like I block it. I'm like, I can't go there right now. I'm just gonna like take care of my body, I guess. But once this is done, all of a sudden you can also breathe. And when you breathe, you need to start talking.
I just want to add to that, Mary. I think it's amazing because you do come from the field, and Susie, you also. I mean, you're in the field. You speak the language. But imagine what happens to someone who does not speak the language, has never spoke the language, never seen those things. And I always think about those police forces. They come into healing space, and just to see this, it always brings a smile to my face because they come without you. You have to come without uniform. Okay, so you come in there, you don't have your uniform. Of course, you have your gun, but you can imagine like a typical policeman, right? They've never been to trauma-informed yoga or sound healing, or have made a bowl from clay, or have smelled, essential oils because they had an issue. Like if they had an issue, they took Advil, they complained, or maybe done nothing. I don't know. And so they walk in there and they have to. This is a day of work for them. They can't choose, right? Their work sent them to go there. And they come in, and they never spoke this language. They never said those words. They've never met those things. And they go yard by yard and they meet those new modalities. And they're like, so not only do they say, oh, my body knows what I don't know, which would be kind of like saying the trauma talking. They say, where have I been until today? And they literally say this, like I will stand in line to the bathroom and I would hear them say things like that. Where have I been? I didn't know about this. It's like, and someone said, it's like the entire air of my body was taken out and then put right back in, whoosh, like that. And then someone said, I haven't slept for 2 minutes straight since October 7th. This is the first time I've slept for 40 minutes. And so you can't argue with this, right? They can say, I've never seen this. I don't believe in this. I don't have trauma. I'm fine. But you can't really lie. Right? And so after this day and after the treatments, they understand something new.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I am so grateful hearing all of this about the body. And then it makes me more grateful for my therapist because I sought her out. Talk therapy wasn't helping me just in general. I've done talk therapy so much in my life. I was a therapist in my past life. And so I realized that my body was keeping the score for years. And then October 7th happened. And then hearing all the testimonies, when I was in Israel and just, the impact of like sleep and food and headaches and then feeling guilt that I wasn't even there October 7th. And I'm experiencing all this, all that. And so how you describe it, I cannot wait to go. I mean, that was like my first thing. I cannot wait to go to experience it. And I know you invited us. And we were leaving like the next day or something. But I'm curious, what are steps that listeners can begin to take if they wanted to get involved with Healing Space?
So I'll say that this amazing place wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for supporters, especially from the United States, our brothers and sisters, donations, contributions, support on our website directly to our programs. I'll say that every time that you make a donation to Healing Space, it goes directly to a bereaved family, to a soldier, to a hostage's family, to a family of orphans. It goes directly to them. There's almost no kind of like buff around this. It goes directly to a program. And so by supporting, you can say, I'll support one soldier, one unit. I'll support a family. I'll support one program. I'll support 1 year. These are all amazing ways to support us. And especially now when we're building the new campus, we need all the help we can get because we're trying within 2 months to make this campus from 0 to 100, just like we did in the first campus. And we're going to succeed, but we'll need a lot of funding to create this infrastructure. So this is the greatest help. And I'm always asked if people can volunteer. And the answer is yes, sure, you can volunteer, but you need to commit to a period of time of volunteering because it takes time to learn the place and to learn the language and to actually help. But yes, it's always welcome. So these are the two ways. And I think the third one, that's an important one, is to talk about it, to talk about Healing Space, to talk about hope, to talk about the fact that this place exists in Israel, to come visit it, to see it, to show it on your social media, to talk about it, to bring it out, because I think not enough people really know what we're doing.
So we're asking everyone that's on the podcast these next two questions. So the first one is, what is one thing that you are willing to do this week, that you're committing to do for your own healing and growth?
Going to sleep earlier. I go to bed at like 1 or 2. I'll try closer to 11 p.m. I promise.
Love that. And no wonder you always respond to me no matter what time I'm messaging you. And our last question is, what has it been like to tell your story today?
I love it. I mean, I love talking. I love telling. I always feel like I'm the shofar or the translator of others who can't talk. I like to be the voice of things. So to be the voice of, 10,000 people who have come to Healing Space and a team of, 170 people who work there, and of Israel being such a startup nation, building this trauma center, I love to be the voice of this and for more people to know and hear about this thanks to your show.
I love you more and more that I hear you. I mean, it's contagious. Like wanting to do and wanting to go over there and wanting to go to Healing Space is super contagious. Yeah, I appreciate your voice so much. And of course, your heartbeat. So we're going to list this obviously when we drop the episode. And then can you just sort of do a shout out of your Instagram or Facebook or website, and we'll also list it?
So to find Healing Space, you put Healing Space Rishpon. Rishpon is the place near Herzliya where it's at. And you find us. On Instagram, you find Chavat Marpeh, only with H. So Chavat Marpeh, one word. And we'll put it all in the links. Same for Facebook. And on our website, you'll find English and Hebrew information and also all of the information to how to donate and how to support and how to get to us. And feel free to also email through the info email and ask all sorts of questions. How do we visit? How do we support? How do we ask another question? And so on. So it's all there.
Illana, thank you for being such a light and for holding the light for so many people.
Thank you. And thanks to you, it will reach more and more people. And I hope this conversation is also helpful to someone who's listening and aren't aware or not admitting their own traumatic response and can think of maybe more creative, out-of-the-box ways to look at it and to treat it.
We'd like to thank our listeners, music composer Jonathan Bargiora, sound designer Ivan Reyes, podcast advisor Donna Fazari, and special thanks to the Academic Engagement Network for their generous support. Today's episode is co-produced by Professor Susie Hess and Dr. Miri Bar Halprin. Our Stories Matter, We Will Dance Again is brought to you by Trauma Informed LA. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram and at our website at traumainformedla.org. Please give us 5 stars on iTunes so more folks can have access and donate to traumainformedla.org so we can keep recording and healing through our storytelling episodes.